Yuna Kim floated in the zero-gravity lab, her dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail as she studied the strange purple samples under the microscope. The research ship Hanbit had been her home for 6 months now, traveling through space to study alien life forms. She loved this work. Every day brought new discoveries about creatures that lived on distant planets. The lab was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Through the large window, she could see stars scattered like diamonds across the black of space. The Kepler 442 system had 3 planets, and they had found life on 2 of them. Simple life, but life nonetheless. Bacteria, small plants, nothing dangerous. That was what made this mission perfect for a small research team. "Yuna, come look at this," called Do-Yoon Park from across the lab. Captain Park was a good man, maybe 40 years old with kind eyes and steady hands. He had been flying research ships for 15 years. Yuna trusted him completely. She pushed off from her workstation and floated over to where he stood looking, at a computer screen. The display showed readings from the planet below them. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "These energy readings," Do-Yoon pointed at the screen. "They started showing up an hour ago, but there is nothing down there that should make energy like this." Yuna frowned as she studied the numbers. The readings were strong, too strong for the simple life forms they had found. "Maybe our equipment is broken?" I thought so too. But Minho checked everything twice. Do-Hyun looked worried. Minho Lee was their engineer, and if he said the equipment was working, then it was working perfectly. A loud beeping sound filled the lab. Both Yuna and Do-Hyun turned toward the main computer. Red warning lights started flashing on every screen. "What is that?" Yuna asked, but she already felt afraid. The beeping meant danger. Do-Hyun was already moving toward the captain's chair. "Unknown ships approaching fast," he called out. 3 of them, big ones." Yuna strapped herself into a safety seat as the ship began to shake. Through the window, she could see 3 dark shapes moving toward them. The ships were huge, much bigger than the Hanbit. They looked like giant insects with metal wings and sharp points sticking out everywhere. "Minho, can we run?" Do-Hyun spoke into his communication device. "Not fast enough," came Minho's voice from the engine room. "They are too close and too fast." The alien ships surrounded the Hanbit in minutes. Yuna watched as strange beams of light came from the alien ships and touched their hull. The beams were not weapons, she realized. They were some kind of tractor beams holding the Hanbit in place. "Incoming message," the computer announced in its calm voice. The main screen filled with an alien face that made Yuna's stomach turn. The creature looked like a lizard, but bigger and more intelligent. Its skin was dark green with black spots. Yellow eyes stared at them without any emotion. When it spoke, its voice was cold and harsh. "Human ship, you will surrender now. Any resistance will make your death more painful." Do-Hyun stood up straight, trying to look brave. "This is a peaceful research vessel. We have done nothing wrong. Let us go." The alien made a sound like laughing, but there was no humor in it. "You exist. That is wrong enough. Prepare to be boarded." The screen went black. Yuna felt her heart beating fast. She had read about hostile alien species in school, but she never thought she would meet one. The research ship had no weapons, no shields, nothing to protect them. "What do we do?" she asked. Do-Hyun's face was grim. "We try to survive." A loud bang came from somewhere in the ship. Then another. The aliens were cutting through their hull. Yuna could hear metal being torn apart. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Minho appeared in the lab, his face pale with fear. "They are coming through the cargo bay," he said. "We have maybe 2 minutes." Do-Hyun grabbed the emergency kit from the wall. Inside were basic medical supplies and a small pistol that could fire energy bolts. Not much against an alien invasion force, but better than nothing. "Stay behind me," he told Yuna and Minho. "Maybe we can reach the escape pods." They moved through the ship's corridors as quietly as possible. Yuna could hear strange sounds echoing through the walls. Metal footsteps. Alien voices speaking in HFY, a language that sounded like snakes hissing. They were almost at the escape pods when the lights went out. Emergency lighting came on, painting everything in red. Then they heard it, the sound of something big moving in the darkness ahead of them. "Go back," Do-Hyun whispered. Too late. A bright light filled the corridor, blinding them. When Yuna's eyes adjusted, she saw 5 aliens standing in front of them. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, wearing dark armor that looked like it was made from the shells of giant insects. Each one carried a weapon that glowed with blue energy. "Humans," said one of them. Its voice was deep and rough. "You will come with us now." Do-hyun raised his small pistol. "Run," he told Yuna and Minho. Before he could fire, one of the aliens pointed its weapon at him. A bolt of blue energy hit Do-hyun in the chest. He fell to the floor, his body shaking uncontrollably. He was alive, but he could not move. "Paralysis beam," the alien explained, sounding bored. "You will not die yet. We have plans for you." 2 more aliens appeared behind them, cutting off their escape. Yuna and Minho had nowhere to go. One of the aliens pointed its weapon at Minho. Another blew bolt, and the engineer fell beside their captain. Yuna was alone now, surrounded by 5 giant lizard creatures in the red-lit corridor of her ship. She wanted to be brave like Do-hyun, but her hands were shaking. She had never been so afraid in her life. The leader of the aliens stepped closer to her. Its yellow eyes studied her like she was an interesting insect. "This one is different," it said to the others. "Her genetic markers show resistance to neural suppression. She will be useful for the experiments." "What experiments?" Yuna managed to ask. The alien made that laughing sound again. "You will learn, human female. The Velkari have studied pain for 1,000 years. We know that suffering reveals the truth about a species. You will help us understand how much truth your kind can handle before breaking." 2 aliens grabbed Yuna's arms. Their grip was strong enough to bruise, but they were careful not to break her bones. Not yet. She tried to fight, but she might as well have been fighting against robots. They were too strong. As they dragged her toward their ship, she looked back at Do-hyun and Minho lying paralyzed on the floor. "What about them?" "They will wait their turn," the leader said. "But you are special, human female. You get to go first." The alien ship was dark and cold inside. The walls looked like they were made from bones, and the air smelled like metal and something rotting. They pulled her through corridors filled with strange machines and empty cages. Some of the cages still had dried blood on the bars. Finally, they reached a large room filled with devices that looked like torture equipment. Yuna's fear turned to terror as she realized what this place was. This was where they brought other species to study their pain. "Welcome to the pain's truth," the leader said. "Here you will discover what your species is truly made of." They strapped her to a metal table in the center of the room. The straps were made from some kind of alien, metal that felt cold against her skin. No matter how hard she pulled, they would not break. "My name is HFY," the leader told her as other aliens began preparing their machines. "I am the commander of this vessel. You will come to know me very well before you die." Yuna tried to stay calm, but panic was rising in her chest. "Please, we are just scientists. We have never hurt anyone." "That does not matter," HFY said. "What matters is learning the limits of your species. How much pain can a human endure? How long before you beg for death? These are important questions." A smaller alien approached the table. This one wore white robes instead of armor. "This is Kethmore," HFY explained. "He is our master of pain. He has studied the suffering of 47 different species. You will be his 48th. Kethmore looked at Yuna with scientific interest, like she was a puzzle to solve. "The genetic scans show unusual neural pathways," it said to HFY. "This one may last longer than most." "Good," HFY replied. "The longer they last, the more we learn." Machines hummed to life around the table. Yuna could see screens displaying her heartbeat, her brain activity, the temperature of her skin. They were going to monitor everything while they tortured her. "Let us begin," Kethmore said, reaching for a device that sparked with electricity. Yuna closed her eyes and tried to think of home. She thought of her family, her friends, the laboratory where she had spent so many happy hours studying the wonders of life in the universe. She tried to hold on to those good memories as the first wave of pain began. She had no idea that this pain would change her into something the Velkari had never seen before, something that would make them regret ever learning. The name of the human species. The first shock of electricity went through Yuna's body like lightning. Every muscle tensed at once, and she bit her tongue to keep from screaming. The taste of blood filled her mouth as the pain faded to a dull ache. Kethmore studied the readings on his screens with interest. Interesting. Most species scream immediately. This one shows remarkable control. Continue, Thexavar ordered from where he stood watching. Increase the intensity slowly. We want to map her pain responses completely. The second shock was stronger. This time, Yuna could not hold back a grunt of pain. The electricity seemed to find every nerve in her body and set them on fire. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. Heart rate elevated but stable, Kethmore reported. Neural activity shows pain recognition but no breakdown yet. Shall I proceed to level 3? Yes, but slowly. If she dies too quickly, we learn nothing useful. For the next hour, they increased the pain bit by bit. The electric shocks became longer, stronger, more focused on sensitive areas. Kethmore was skilled at his terrible work. He knew exactly how much agony to give without causing permanent damage. Not yet. Yuna tried different ways to cope with the torture. She counted backwards from 100. She recited poems she had learned in school. She thought about scientific formulas and tried to solve math problems in her head. Anything to keep her mind away from what they were doing to her body. But the pain kept growing stronger. By the second hour, she was screaming with every shock. Her voice became hoarse, then disappeared completely. Sweat poured down her face, even though the room was cold. Fascinating, Kethmore said as he adjusted his instruments. She has been conscious for 2 hours under level 5 neural stimulation. Most carbon-based life forms lose consciousness after 30 minutes. What does this tell us about humans? Thexvar asked. They are more resilient than we thought. Their nervous systems can handle extreme stress without shutting down. This could make them dangerous if they ever develop advanced weapons. Thexvar's eyes narrowed. Then it is good we are learning this now. Continue the experiment. In the third hour, they began using different types of pain. Heat that felt like being burned alive. Cold that went so deep it felt like her bones were freezing. Pressure that made her feel like she was being crushed by a giant weight. Yuna's mind began to drift. The pain was so constant now that it almost felt normal. She found herself thinking about her research, about the bacteria and plants they had been studying. Life was so determined to survive, even in the worst conditions. Even tiny organisms would fight to live when everything around them was trying to kill them. Subject appears to be entering a dissociative state, Kethmore observed. This is unusual. Most species either break mentally or lose consciousness by now. Wake her up, Thexvar commanded. We need her fully aware for the final phase. They injected something into her arm that made her mind snap back to sharp focus. Every nerve ending came alive again, making the pain even worse than before. Yuna gasped and tried to speak, but only managed a weak whisper. Please, she managed to say. Just kill me. Not yet, Thexavar replied. We are learning so much about your species. Did you know that humans can remain conscious under pain levels that would kill most other creatures? Your kind might be more dangerous than we realized. In the fourth hour, they brought out their most advanced torture device. It looked like a helmet made of metal and crystals. When they placed it on her head, Yuna could feel something probing inside her brain. Neural pain amplifier, Kethmore explained. This device stimulates the pain centers of the brain directly. It creates agony without any actual physical damage. Very efficient. The pain that followed was beyond anything Yuna had ever imagined. It was not just physical torture anymore. The device was making her brain create the worst possible sensations. Burning, cutting, crushing, all at the same time. She screamed until her throat was raw, then kept screaming silently when no sound would come. But something strange was happening. Deep inside her mind, in places the alien device could not reach, Yuna felt something stirring, like a sleeping giant waking up. The pain was so intense that it was triggering responses in parts of her brain that had never been active before. Sir, Kethmore said, sounding confused for the first time. I am getting very unusual readings from her neural cortex. Activity in areas that should not be responding to pain stimulation. What kind of activity? I do not know. The patterns are unlike anything in our database. It is almost like her brain is evolving. Thexvar stepped closer to the table. Impossible. Neural evolution does not happen during individual torture sessions. It takes thousands of generations. Nevertheless, the readings are clear. Something in her brain is changing. In the 5th hour, the changes became more obvious. Yuna's heart rate, which had been dangerously high, suddenly became steady. Her breathing, which had been ragged and desperate, became calm and controlled. Most surprising of all, she stopped screaming. "Increase power," Thexvar ordered. Kethmore looked uncertain. "Sir, the device is already at maximum intensity. Any higher and we risk killing her." "Do it anyway." The torturer increased the power beyond safe levels. The pain amplifier began to smoke and spark. But Yuna did not scream. Instead, she opened her eyes and looked directly at Thexvar. Her gaze was steady and calm, like someone who had found peace in the middle of a storm. "This is impossible," Kethmore whispered. "No creature can remain conscious under this level of neural stimulation." Yuna tried to speak, but her voice was too damaged. Instead, she mouthed words that Thexvar could read on her lips. "You have no idea what you have awakened." "What does she mean?" Thexvar demanded. Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and a computer voice announced, "Medical emergency in Torture Chamber 7. Subject experiencing cardiac arrest." Yuna's heart had finally stopped. The monitors showed flat lines across all her vital signs. Her eyes closed, and her body went completely still. "Time of death, 14:23 ship time," Kethmore announced. "Total duration of consciousness under extreme torture, 6 hours and 15 minutes. This is a new record." Thexvar stared at Yuna's lifeless body. 6 hours. Incredible. Most species break after 1 hour. The strongest last maybe 3. But 6 hours... "What should we do with the body, sir?" "Preserve it for dissection. I want to know everything about human physiology. How their brains work, how their nervous systems function, what makes them so resistant to pain. This information could be valuable when we encounter more of their species." The Velkari began preparing Yuna's body for scientific examination. They moved her to a medical table in an adjacent room and began setting up their dissection equipment. Scanners analyzed every cell, every organ, every chemical process that had been active in her brain during the torture. "Look at this," one of the medical technicians said, pointing at a brain scan. "These neural pathways were completely inactive when we started. But during the torture, they not only became active, they actually grew stronger." "What do they control?" Kethmore asked. "Unknown. They connect to areas of the brain that humans supposedly do not use. But the activity patterns suggest they might control things like healing, strength, and sensory enhancement." Thexvar studied the scans with growing interest. "You mean the torture actually improved her capabilities?" "It appears so, sir. The extreme stress triggered some kind of evolutionary response. Her brain was adapting to survive the pain." "But she died anyway." "Yes, sir. But if she had survived a few more hours, she might have become something quite different from a normal human." Thexvar laughed. "It does not matter now. She is dead. Prepare the dissection tools. I want to see how a human brain is constructed." The medical team arranged their instruments around Yuna's still form. Scalpels, bone saws, neural probes, everything they needed to take apart a human body and learn its secrets. But as they prepared to begin their work, none of them noticed the subtle changes happening inside Yuna's cells. The torture had done more than trigger new neural pathways. It had awakened something much deeper and more ancient, genetic programming that had been dormant in human DNA for millions of years. Deep in her bone marrow, stem cells began reproducing at an impossible rate. In her brain, the new neural pathways started to glow with barely detectable electrical activity. Her heart, which had been still for 35 minutes, gave one tiny, almost invisible beat. "Beginning dissection procedure," the lead medical technician announced. But as he reached for his first scalpel, Yuna's eyes suddenly snapped open. They were no longer the dark brown they had been before. Now they glowed with a faint silver light, like stars reflected in deep water. The Velkari medical team froze in shock as the supposedly dead human sat up on the table, very much alive and very much changed. Yuna's eyes opened like silver fire in the darkness. The three Velkari medical technicians around the dissection table stumbled backward, their hands reaching for weapons that were not there. They had not expected to need weapons in a room with a dead body. "Impossible," whispered the lead technician, a thin Velkari named Vex. "She has been dead for 37 minutes. No carbon-based life form can survive that long without brain activity." But Yuna was clearly not dead. She sat up slowly on the metal table, her movements smooth and controlled. The restraints that had held her during the torture snapped like paper as she moved. The metal straps, designed to hold creatures much stronger than humans, broke without any effort at all. Her body looked the same, but something fundamental had changed. Her skin had a faint glow, like moonlight on water. Her muscles seemed more defined, as if they had been rebuilt from the inside out. When she turned her head to look at the terrified technicians, her neck moved with liquid grace. "Alert Commander Thexvar!" Vexith hissed to one of his assistants. "Tell him the human female has awakened." "What do you mean, awakened?" the assistant asked, never taking his eyes off Yuna. "I mean she is not dead anymore. Move!" The assistant ran from the room, his clawed feet clicking on the metal floor. Vexith and the remaining technician began backing toward the door, but they moved slowly, afraid that sudden movements might trigger an attack. Yuna slid off the table and stood up. She was naked, having been prepared for dissection, but she showed no shame or fear. Instead, she looked around the room with calm curiosity, as if seeing everything for the first time. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was different now, still recognizably human, but deeper, more resonant. The words seemed to vibrate in the air. "You are aboard the Pain's Truth," Vexith answered automatically. "In Medical Base 7, you were dead. How are you alive?" Yuna looked down at her hands. She could see her own pulse glowing beneath the skin like tiny rivers of light. Her heart was beating, but faster and stronger than before, much stronger. She could feel power flowing through her body like electricity through wire. "I remember. The pain," she said softly. "It felt like drowning in fire. But then, something changed. The pain became something else." "What do you mean?" Yuna closed her eyes and concentrated. She could feel her own nervous system like a map inside her mind. Every nerve, every connection, every pathway was visible to her now. And there were new pathways, ones that had never existed before. They pulsed with energy and possibility. "The torture triggered something," she explained, opening her silver eyes again. "Something that was sleeping in my genes. An old program, waiting for the right stimulus to activate." She took a step toward the technicians, and they backed away further. But Yuna was not threatening them. She was simply testing her new body, learning how it worked. "Your species has survived for millions of years," she continued, speaking more to herself than to them. "Ice ages, diseases, wars, natural disasters. We survived because we could adapt. But this," she looked at her glowing hands again, "this is adaptation on a scale I never imagined." Commander Thexvar burst into the room with 4 armed guards. Their weapons were already raised and aimed at Yuna. Energy weapons that could burn through, metal, neural disruptors that could paralyze any known nervous system, plasma bolts that could vaporize flesh. "Stand down, human!" Thexvar shouted. "You will return to the table immediately." Yuna turned to face him with that same calm expression. "No," she said simply. "You have no choice. My guards will stun you if necessary." "Your guards will try," Yuna agreed. "But I do not think your weapons will work on me anymore." To prove her point, she walked directly toward them. Thexvar gestured angrily at his guards. "Fire! All weapons!" 4 different energy beams hit Yuna at the same time. Neural disruptors, plasma bolts, sonic stunners, and bioelectric paralyzers. Enough firepower to stop a charging beast from any known world. The beams struck her body and did nothing. They passed through her like light through water, leaving no mark, causing no damage. Yuna did not even slow down as she walked through the weapon's fire. "Impossible," Thexvar breathed. "Those weapons can stop anything. Your torture taught my body how to handle energy," Yuna explained as she approached them. "Every nerve, every cell learned to absorb and redirect electrical force. Your own pain amplifiers made me immune to energy weapons." One of the guards dropped his weapon and ran. The others kept firing, but their shots were having no effect. Yuna reached the nearest guard and gently took his weapon away. The metal crumpled in her grip like paper. "My bones are denser now," she observed, crushing the weapon completely. "My muscles are more efficient, my reflexes are faster, and my brain—" She paused, as if listening to something only she could hear. "My brain can process information at incredible speeds." She looked at the ship's computer terminal on the wall. Without touching it, without even moving closer, the screen began to light up with data. Information flowed across the display, too, fast for the Velkari to read. "How are you doing that?" Thexvar demanded. "I am not sure," Yuna admitted. "But I can feel the ship's computer systems. They use electromagnetic fields to store and transmit data. My new nervous system can interact with those fields directly." The display showed technical specifications for the Pain's Truth: engine capabilities, weapon systems, life support, communication arrays. Yuna absorbed all of it in seconds. "Interesting ship," she said. "Designed specifically for capturing and torturing other species. You have studied 47 different kinds of life forms. All of them died under your experiments." "They were weak," Thexvar snarled. "Unlike humans, apparently." "No," Yuna corrected him. "They were unprepared. My species has been preparing for this kind of stress for millions of years. We just did not know it until now." She turned her attention back to the computer systems. More data flowed across the screens: star charts, ship logs, records of other Velkari vessels. "You have been hunting peaceful species for over 1,000 years," she continued, reading the information as fast as it appeared. "Scientific expeditions, exploration vessels, refugee ships. Always the weak ones, the ones who cannot fight back." "It is efficient," Thexvar said. "Why waste time with dangerous prey when weak prey serves our purposes?" "Because," Yuna said, finally looking directly at him, "sometimes the prey evolves." The lights in the room began to flicker. The computer systems throughout the ship started showing errors and glitches. Yuna was not just accessing the ship's data anymore. She was beginning to control it. "Stop that," Thexvar ordered. "Guards, stop her!" The remaining guards tried to physically grab Yuna, but they might as well have tried to wrestle with a mountain. She did not fight them or hurt them. She simply stood still and let them push against her immovable form. Their claws and strength, which could tear apart most creatures, could not even move her. "I do not want to hurt you," she told them calmly. "But I need to understand your ship, your people, and your intentions toward my species." More information flowed through the computer networks and into her consciousness. Communication logs between Velkari ships, reports about human space and human colonies, plans for future raids and experiments. "You have been watching us," she realized. "Studying our settlements, our travel routes, our technology. This was not a random encounter. You came to our system specifically to capture humans." "Your species shows promise," Thexvar admitted. "We wanted to understand your potential before deciding how to deal with you. And now you understand." Yuna's eyes blazed brighter. "What is your decision?" Thexvar tried to look confident, but Yuna could smell his fear. Her enhanced senses could detect his elevated heart rate, the chemical changes in his body that indicated terror. "You are one human," he said. "Unusual, perhaps, but still only one. There are billions of Velkari across the galaxy. We have ships, weapons, entire fleets of warships." "Yes," Yuna agreed. "But you made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" "You assumed I was the only one?" Yuna smiled, and for the first time since her awakening, the expression was not entirely human. There was something predatory in it, something that made even the battle-hardened Velkari guards step backward. "What do you mean?" "Every human has the same genetic potential that I had, the same dormant programming waiting to be activated. You have shown me that extreme stress can trigger this evolution." Her smile became wider, more dangerous. "How many more humans do you think will undergo the same transformation when they learn what you did to me?" The implications hit Thexvar like a physical blow. If one human could become this powerful through torture, what would happen when other humans were exposed to similar stress? What would happen when they prepared for it, trained for it, chose to undergo the transformation deliberately? "You see the problem?" Yuna continued, reading his thoughts from the chemical signals his body was producing. "You intended to study one weak species. Instead, you have created a new kind of human, One that your weapons cannot hurt, your torture cannot break, and your technology cannot stop. She accessed more of the ship's systems: navigation, communications, weapons control. All of it became an extension of her will. "Now," she said, her voice taking on a tone of absolute authority, "we need to discuss what happens next." The room fell silent except for the hum of machinery, and Yuna stood in the medical bay surrounded by terrified Velkari, her silver eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. The ship's systems were responding to her will now, but she needed to understand the full extent of her new capabilities. "Commander," she said to Thexvar, her voice carrying an authority that made him step backward, "I need clothes and information. You will provide both." "I will provide nothing," Thexvar snarled, trying to regain his composure. "You are one against hundreds. This ship has enough firepower to destroy planets." Yuna tilted her head, accessing the ship's computer systems deeper than before. Schematics flooded her mind. Crew quarters, weapon bays, engine rooms, life support, systems. She could see the ship's layout as clearly as if she had built it herself. 437 crew members, she said calmly. 63 warriors, 31 technicians, 47 medical staff, and the rest are support personnel. Your main weapons include plasma cannons, neural gas dispensers, and something called a pain broadcast system. Thexvar's eyes widened. "How do you know our crew numbers? That information is classified." "I know because your computer told me." Yuna gestured at the wall terminal, which was now displaying detailed crew rosters. "I also know that you have more human prisoners on levels 4 and 7. Captain Do-hyun Park and Engineer Minho Lee from my ship, plus 17 others from vessels you captured over the past 6 months. The remaining guards exchanged nervous glances. Their commander's confident facade was cracking as he realized the extent of Yuna's new abilities. "You want to know what happens next?" Yuna continued. "Here is what happens. You release all human prisoners. You provide me with access to your communication systems, and you give me detailed information about every Velkari operation in human space. And if I refuse?" Yuna looked around the medical bay, taking note of every piece of equipment, every weapon, every potential tool. "Then I take what I need anyway." She walked to a supply cabinet and pulled out a medical uniform. The fabric was designed for Velkari physiology, but she modified it with her bare hands, tearing and reshaping until it fit her human form. Her enhanced strength made the tough material as easy to work with as paper. "Much better," she said, now dressed in the improvised clothing. "Now, about those prisoners." Thexvar made a quick gesture to his guards. They understood the signal and began backing toward the door. But Yuna was faster. She moved between them and the exit in a blur of motion that the Velkari eyes could barely follow. "Leaving so soon?" she asked, standing directly in front of the door. "But we were having such an interesting conversation." One of the guards tried to shoot her with his sidearm. The energy bolt passed through her harmlessly, just as before. Yuna caught the weapon as he dropped it in shock and examined it with scientific curiosity. "Bioelectric pulse weapon," she observed, reading the device's energy signature. "Designed to disrupt nervous systems. Very effective against most species. But my nervous system is different now. Instead of being disrupted by electrical energy, it absorbs and redirects it." To demonstrate, she pointed the weapon at a nearby medical scanner and fired. The bolt that should have paralyzed a living target instead overloaded the machine's circuits, causing it to explode in a shower of sparks. "Interesting," she murmured. "I can not only absorb energy weapons, I can amplify their effects when redirecting them." The guards were now pressed against the far wall, as far from Yuna as they could get in the small room. Thexvar was trying to reach his personal communicator, but Yuna noticed the movement immediately. "Calling for help?" she asked. "Go ahead. I would like to meet more of your crew." Thexvar activated his communicator. "All security teams to Medical Bay 7. Code Red Emergency. Hostile prisoner has escaped and is resisting containment." Within minutes, the corridor outside filled with the sound of running feet and shouting voices. Heavy boots, weapons being charged, orders being barked in the harsh Velkari language. Yuna listened to it all with enhanced hearing that could pick up conversations from 3 decks away. 63 warriors, she said to herself. And they are all coming here. The first wave of security forces arrived at the medical bay door. They set up energy barriers and aimed heavy weapons at the entrance. Plasma cannons that could melt through starship hulls, neural scramblers that could disable entire crowds, sonic weapons that could shatter bones. "Surrender now!" shouted the security chief through a loudspeaker. "Come out with your hands visible and you will not be harmed." Yuna laughed, and the sound sent chills through every Velkari who heard it. It was not the laugh of someone who was afraid or desperate. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized how much fun they were about to have. "Stay here," she told Thexvar and his guards. "I will be back shortly." She walked to the door and placed her hand on the metal surface. The door was locked and reinforced, designed to contain even the strongest prisoners. But Yuna could feel the electronic systems that controlled it. Lock mechanisms, security protocols, access codes, all of it became clear to her enhanced mind. The door slid open without any resistance. The security forces outside opened fire immediately. Dozens of energy weapons discharged at once, filling the corridor with deadly light. Plasma bolts, neural disruptors, sonic pulses, and several types of weapons Yuna had never seen before. She walked through the barrage like she was strolling through a garden. The energy weapons had no effect on her at all. The physical projectiles bounced off her enhanced skin like raindrops. The sonic weapons that should have shattered her bones only made her hair flutter slightly. "Impossible," the security chief shouted. "All weapons, maximum power." The warriors increased their weapons output to levels that would have killed multiple targets with each shot. The corridor filled with so much energy that the walls began to glow red hot. Emergency systems activated to prevent the ship's hull from melting. Yuna reached the first line of security forces while they were still firing. She did not attack them or try to hurt them. Instead, she simply took their weapons away, one by one. She removed each device from their grip and crushed it in her hands. "These will not work on me," she explained calmly as she destroyed their equipment. "But thank you for helping me understand their capabilities." Some of the warriors tried to fight her with claws and physical strength. They were large, powerful creatures with muscles designed for combat. But fighting Yuna was like fighting a statue. She stood perfectly still while they struck her, letting them exhaust themselves against her immovable form. "Are you finished?" she asked when they stopped hitting her. The security forces backed away in terror. Their best weapons had failed. Their strongest warriors could not move her. Nothing in their training had prepared them for an enemy like this. "Where are the human prisoners?" Yuna asked. Nobody answered. "They were too shocked to speak," I asked. "A question," Yuna said, her voice becoming colder. "Where are my people?" Still silence. The warriors looked at each other uncertainly, waiting for someone else to make the first move. Yuna sighed and reached for the nearest wall terminal. As soon as her fingers touched the surface, the ship's internal sensors came online in her mind. She could see through every camera, hear through every microphone, access every piece of data in the ship's memory banks. Level 4, detention block. "See," she said after a moment. "Captain Park and Engineer Lee are in cells 7 and 8. The other human prisoners are scattered throughout levels 4 and 7. She began walking down the corridor toward the detention levels. The security forces followed at a distance, afraid to get too close, but unwilling to let her roam the ship freely. "You could just tell me how to reach them," Yuna called back to them. "It would save everyone a lot of trouble." More warriors appeared ahead of her, blocking the corridor with portable energy barriers and heavy weapons. These were the ship's elite guards, wearing advanced armor and carrying weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat. "Halt!" their leader commanded. "You will go no further." Yuna studied the energy barriers with interest. They were more sophisticated than the handheld. Weapons, drawing power directly from the ship's main reactor, strong enough to stop plasma torpedoes according to the technical specifications that flowed through her mind. Impressive, she admitted. But still not enough. She walked directly into the energy barrier. Instead of stopping her, the barrier began to flicker and distort. Yuna's body was absorbing the energy faster than the generators could produce it. Within seconds, the barrier collapsed completely. The elite guards opened fire with everything they had. Ship-killer weapons that should have vaporized her instantly. But the more energy they poured into their attacks, the brighter Yuna's eyes became. She was not just absorbing the energy anymore, she was storing it, building it up inside her enhanced nervous system. When the weapons finally overheated and stopped firing, Yuna raised her hand. Silver light gathered around her fingers, and she released a controlled burst of energy that overloaded every electronic system in the corridor. Lights exploded, weapons short-circuited, and the armored guards found themselves standing in darkness, with dead equipment. "Thank you for the demonstration," Yuna said politely. "Now I know I can store and redirect energy as well as absorb it." She continued toward the detention levels, leaving behind a corridor foe. Yuna reached the detention levels without further resistance. The Velkari security forces had learned that their weapons were useless against her, and they were now following at a safe distance, reporting her movements to their commanders, but not attempting to stop her. The detention block was a grim place. Rows of cells lined the corridors, each one designed to hold different types of prisoners. Some cells had energy barriers, others had solid doors with small windows. The air smelled of fear and despair. She found Captain Do-Yun Park in Cell 7, just as the ship's computer had told her. He was unconscious, lying on a narrow metal bed. His body showed signs of torture, burns from energy weapons, marks from restraints, bruises from physical abuse. But he was alive. Yuna placed her hand on the cell door's control panel. The locking mechanism was sophisticated, requiring multiple security codes and biometric verification. But to her enhanced nervous system, it was just another electronic puzzle to solve. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Captain," she said softly, kneeling beside the bed. Do-Yun's eyes opened slowly. For a moment, he did not recognize her. Then his face filled with confusion and hope. "Yuna? But they said you were dead. They tortured you for hours, then took your body away." "I was dead," she confirmed. "For 37 minutes. But something happened during the torture. Something changed inside me." Do-Yun tried to sit up, wincing from his injuries. "Changed how?" "It is hard to explain. The pain triggered something in my genes, something that had been dormant. I evolved, Captain. I became something more than human." She helped him stand, supporting his weight easily. Her enhanced strength made him feel as light as a child. "We need to find Minho and the others," she said. "Can you walk?" "I think so. But Yuna, there are hundreds of aliens on this ship. How? Are we going to escape?" "We are not escaping," she replied. "We are taking control." They moved to Cell 8, where Minho Lee was being held. The engineer was in better condition than the captain, having been captured more recently. When Yuna opened his cell, he stumbled out with wide eyes. "Yuna, they told us you were dead. How did you escape, and why do your eyes look like that?" "I will explain later," she said. "Right now, we need to find the other human prisoners." As they moved through the detention block, Yuna accessed the ship's prisoner database through the wall terminals. 17 other humans from various captured ships, held in cells throughout levels 4 and 7. Scientists, traders, explorers, all peaceful people who had been unlucky enough to encounter the Velkari. "There," she said, pointing to a heavily guarded section of the detention block. "The others are being held in the high-security cells." A dozen Velkari guards stood between them and the remaining prisoners. These guards had learned from the reports of their colleagues' failures. Instead of energy weapons, they carried physical restraints, nets, and tools designed to capture rather than kill. "Human female!" their leader called out. "You will stop here. We know your weapons do not work on you, but we have other methods." "Such as?" Yuna asked, genuinely curious. "Gas that will make you unconscious, restraints made from materials that conduct no energy, traps that will hold you without harming you." Yuna smiled. "You are learning. That is good, but you are still thinking too small." She reached out with her enhanced senses, feeling the ship's atmosphere control systems. The air circulation, the environmental processors, the gas storage tanks that the guards planned to use against her. All of it was connected to the ship's computer network, and all of it was now under her control. "Gas will not work," she explained as she began adjusting the atmospheric systems, "because I control the air you breathe." The guards suddenly found themselves gasping as the oxygen levels in their section of the corridor dropped. Not enough to kill them, but enough to make them dizzy and weak. Their gas weapons became useless as Yuna redirected their contents harmlessly into space. "Physical restraints will not work," she continued. demonstrating by snapping a pair of metal shackles with her bare hands. Because my body is stronger than your materials. She walked through their formation like they were not there, opening each cell door as she passed. Human prisoners stumbled out, confused and afraid but grateful to be free. And traps will not work, she finished, because I can see every system on this ship through the computer network. The remaining human prisoners gathered around her, men and women from different ships, different worlds, but all sharing the same look of hope mixed with disbelief. Some were injured, all were traumatized, but they were alive. "Who are you?" asked an older woman with gray hair and intelligent eyes. "You look human, but—" "I am Dr. Yuna Kim," she replied. "And yes, I am human. Or I was. The Velkari tortured me to death, but something in our genetics responded to the extreme stress. I evolved. Evolved how? Enhanced strength, speed, and intelligence. Immunity to energy weapons. The ability to interface directly with computer systems, and probably other capabilities I have not discovered yet." Captain Do-Yun stepped forward. "Whatever happened to you, we need to focus on getting off this ship. There are hundreds of hostile aliens between us and any escape pods." "We are not leaving," Yuna said firmly. "At least not yet." "What do you mean?" "The Velkari have been hunting peaceful species for over 1,000 years. They have detailed records of 47 different civilizations that they tortured to extinction. Ships full of scientists, explorers, refugees, all murdered in the name of their twisted research." She gestured toward a wall terminal, which immediately displayed horrific images from the ship's database. Records of torture sessions, dissection reports, psychological studies of dying species, the evidence of genocide on an unimaginable scale. "My God," whispered Minho. "How many people have they killed?" "Millions," Yuna replied. "Maybe billions. And they are planning to do the same to humanity." The terminal now showed recent communications between Velkari ships, plans for raids on human colonies, strategies for capturing human specimens, debates about whether to study humans or simply wipe them out as a potential threat. "They see us as interesting subjects for now," Yuna explained, "but they also recognize that humans might be dangerous if we develop advanced weapons. They are planning to solve that problem by eliminating us before we become a threat." The rescued humans stared at the evidence in horror. These were not random attacks or isolated incidents. This was a systematic campaign of extermination that had been going on for centuries. "What can we do?" asked the gray-haired woman. "Even if we escape and warn Earth, how can we fight something like this?" "We start by making sure they understand the consequences of attacking humanity," Yuna said. Her eyes blazed brighter as she accessed more of the ship's systems. "And we make sure other species know what the Velkari really are." She began uploading the ship's entire database through the communication systems, not just to human space, but to every civilization in the galactic network. Evidence of the Velkari's crimes, proof of their systematic genocide, documentation of their plans for future attacks. "What are you doing?" Captain Do-Hyun asked. "Sending a message," Yuna replied. "The Velkari have been careful to only attack isolated ships and weak civilizations, but they have also been keeping detailed records of everything they do. Now those records are being transmitted to every advanced species in the galaxy." Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as the Velkari realized what was happening. Their carefully guarded secrets were being broadcast to civilizations that had the power to stop them. "They will try to cut the communications," Yuna said, "but I am controlling the systems directly through their own network. They cannot stop the transmission without destroying their own ship." Through the ship's sensors, she could see Velkari, warriors running toward the communication array, trying to physically disconnect the equipment. But she was faster, rerouting the transmission through backup systems and emergency channels. "There," she said with satisfaction. "Now every spacefaring civilization knows what the Velkari have been doing. Let them try to explain that to the Galactic Council." But her work was not finished. She still had one more message to send, this, one specifically to human space. A warning, yes, but also something more important. "I am uploading everything I learned about my transformation," she told the other humans. "The genetic triggers, the neurological changes, the enhancement process. If other humans can undergo the same evolution—" "You want to create more like yourself?" Minho asked. "I want to give humanity the tools to survive," Yuna replied. "The Velkari were right about one thing. We could be dangerous if we developed the right capabilities. But they made the mistake of giving us those capabilities themselves. The transmission completed just as the first group of Velkari warriors reached their location. But these were not ordinary guards. They were wearing full combat armor and carrying weapons she had not seen before. Commander Thexavar appeared at their head, his face twisted with rage. "You have doomed us all, human! Do you have any idea what you have done?" "I have given the galaxy the truth," Yuna replied calmly. "Something your species clearly fears more than any weapon. The truth will destroy us. Other species will hunt us across the galaxy." "Good," Yuna said, her voice carrying the weight of 47 extinct civilizations. "Now you know how it feels." Thexavar raised a weapon unlie. Commander Thexavar stared at the transformed humans with growing horror. What had been 17 helpless prisoners were now 17 enhanced beings, their eyes glowing with the same silver light as Yuna's. They moved with new confidence, tested their increased strength, and looked at their former captors without fear. "This cannot be happening," Thexavar whispered. "Genetic evolution takes millions of years. It does not happen in minutes." "Your understanding of evolution is limited," Yuna replied, stepping forward. "You think of it as a slow process of random changes over countless generations. But humans evolved differently. We faced so many extinction events that our genes developed emergency protocols, rapid adaptation systems that activate under extreme stress." She gestured to the other humans, who were now easily breaking free from the restraints that had held them. The torture, the fear, the threat of death, all of it triggered the same response that saved me. You gave us exactly the stimulus we needed to evolve. Captain Do-Yun flexed his enhanced muscles, staring at his hands in amazement. "I can feel the difference. Stronger, faster, more aware. It is like waking up from a long sleep." "The process is not complete for any of you," Yuna explained. "My transformation was more dramatic because I actually died and came back. But you have all gained enhanced capabilities that will continue to develop over time." Thexavar backed away as the enhanced humans surrounded him and his remaining guards. His warriors lowered their weapons, finally understanding that resistance was futile. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "First, control of this ship," Yuna said. "You are going to take us to the Velkari home system." "Impossible. I will not betray my own people." "You already have," Yuna replied calmly. She gestured to a wall display that showed transmission logs. "When I broadcast your database to the galaxy, I included everything. Communication logs showing which commanders approved torture sessions, personnel files identifying every Velkari involved in genocide, financial records showing how your government profited from stolen technology." Thexavar's face went pale. "You sent classified military information to our enemies. I sent evidence of war crimes to civilized species who will demand justice. The difference is important. Through the ship's communication array, they could already hear responses coming in from across the galaxy. Outraged messages from the Galactic Council. Demands for explanations from species the Velkari had thought were too weak to matter. Threats of military action from civilizations that had lost colonies to Velkari raids. Your empire is finished," Yuna continued. "The only question now is whether it ends with justice or with vengeance. You can help determine which one." "What do you mean?" "Set course for your home system. We are going to broadcast a message that every Velkari will hear." Thexavar hesitated, but the enhanced humans around him made the choice clear. He could cooperate, or he could be replaced by someone who would. Reluctantly, he activated his command communicator. "Bridge, this is Commander Thexavar. Set course for the Drakvar system, maximum speed." "Sir?" came the confused reply. "That will take us directly to the homeworld. What about our current mission?" "The mission has changed. Do as I ordered." The ship's engines roared to life, and Yuna felt the acceleration through the hull. But she was already preparing for the next phase of her plan, accessing the ship's weapon systems and navigation computers. "What are you doing now?" Captain Do-Hyun asked. "Learning everything about Velkari military capabilities," she replied. "Ship designs, weapon specifications, fleet deployments, defensive systems. If humanity is going to survive in this galaxy, we need to understand our enemies completely." The information flowed through her enhanced mind at incredible speed. Decades of military development, centuries of conquest and expansion, detailed. Plans for future campaigns. The Velkari Empire was vast and powerful, but it also had weaknesses. They have been so successful because they only attack weak targets, she realized. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming isolated ships and helpless colonies. They have never faced organized resistance from an advanced species. Until now, Minho said with grim satisfaction. The journey to the Velkari home system took 3 days. During that time, Yuna continued to study their technology and capabilities, while the other enhanced humans practiced with their new abilities. They were learning to work together, to coordinate their enhanced senses and reflexes. By the time they reached Drakvar, they had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a unit of enhanced humans working as a team. Not just individuals, with improved capabilities, but a group mind capable of incredible coordination. The Velkari home system was impressive. 5 planets orbiting a binary star, with massive space stations and orbital shipyards. Hundreds of warships patrolled the system, protecting the heart of an empire that had conquered dozens of star systems. Impressive, Yuna admitted as she studied the defenses through the ship's sensors. But not as impressive as they think. She began accessing the system's communication networks, using the Payne's Truth's command codes to bypass security protocols. Within minutes, she had control of the planetary broadcast system. "What are you planning?" Thexvar asked nervously. "A demonstration," Yuna replied. "Your people need to understand what they have created." She activated the ship's weapons systems, but not to attack the orbital defenses. Instead, she targeted empty space, firing precisely controlled bursts of energy that created a pattern visible from every planet in the system. Letters of light spelled out words in the Velkari language. Humanity remembers. The message was simple, but its implications were staggering. A single captured ship had penetrated the most heavily defended system in Velkari space and was broadcasting with impunity. Either their defenses were useless, or the enemy they had, awakened, was far more powerful than they had imagined. Alarms began sounding across the system as Velkari fleet commanders tried to understand what was happening. Warships moved to intercept the Payne's Truth, but Yuna was already 1 step ahead of them. "Attention, Velkari fleet," she broadcast on all military frequencies. "This is Dr. Yuna Kim of the human species. I am the one your people tortured to death. I am also the one who came back." She paused to let that sink in, watching as confused reports flooded the communication channels. "Your empire has spent 1,000 years studying pain and death. You have tortured 47 species to extinction, believing that suffering reveals truth. Today you will learn what truth your own suffering has revealed." The approaching warships opened fire, but their weapons had no effect on the Payne's Truth. Yuna had modified the ship's shields using principles she had discovered during her own transformation. Energy weapons were absorbed and redirected, physical projectiles were deflected harmlessly. "You taught me that evolution happens under extreme stress," she continued her broadcast. "You were correct. The torture you inflicted on me triggered genetic changes that made me stronger, faster, and more intelligent than any human who came before. But more importantly, it taught me to share those enhancements with my species." She transmitted the genetic activation sequences to human space, along with detailed instructions for triggering controlled evolution. Not the traumatic process she had endured, but a planned enhancement that could be safely administered to volunteers. "Humanity is changing," she announced. "We are becoming something you cannot torture, cannot break, and cannot stop. But we are also becoming something else. We are becoming your judges." The enhanced humans on the ship worked together to access every database in the Velkari system. Government files, military records, personal communications, everything was copied and prepared for transmission to the Galactic Council. "For 1,000 years you have hidden your crimes behind lies and propaganda," Yuna said. "You told other species that your victims were primitive savages who deserved their fate. You claimed that pain was a tool of enlightenment. Today, the galaxy will see the truth." The massive data dump began broadcasting on every frequency, reaching every planet and station in the system. Evidence of genocide, proof of systematic torture. Documentation of plans to exterminate entire civilizations, all of it transmitted in formats that could be understood by any spacefaring species. We know who you are, Yuna continued. We know what you have done. And we know that you were planning to do the same to humanity. Valkyrie warships were now surrounding the Pain's Truth, but they could not stop the broadcast or damage the ship. Yuna had turned their own vessel into something beyond their ability to destroy. Here is what happens next, she said, her voice carrying across the system with absolute authority. You will release every prisoner you hold. You will cease all operations in human space. You will surrender yourselves to the Galactic Council for judgment, and if we refuse, came a transmission from the Valkyrie fleet commander. Yuna smiled, though no one could see it. Then humanity will show you the same mercy you showed those 47 extinct species. To emphasize her point, she fired the ship's weapons at one of the orbital defense platforms. But instead of destroying it, she disabled it with surgical precision. Every weapon system was burned out. Every shield generator was overloaded. Every computer was fried. The platform was left intact, but completely helpless. That was a demonstration, she explained.